Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be doing yet another Wolves-based podcast. We're going to be speaking to TylerPricey about how he feels about the season, a bit about the Content Creators Cup that's upcoming as well, and generally how he feels about the transfer window. So let's get straight into this one. How are you, mate?
I'm sound, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. Not too bad. Now, obviously, it's been a bit of a mixed start, really, to the window. Bit of a sort of... It's been flat, hasn't it? Really, to say the least. The last 24 hours has been pretty okay. The links are actually starting to come in now, which is positive. Obviously, lost a lot of players. How are you feeling about it as a whole? Really
Disappointed at the minute, but we do tend to do our business quite late. Like Vitor wants them in for a pre-season, but he never gets what he wants. So yeah, it is underwhelming. But yeah, I feel like the thing we need to focus on is replacing Semedo. I feel like that's key, and obviously we've been linked to about, was it Sanchez? I think you spoke about it on your live.
yeah.
We need get someone of that calibre in, replace Semedo. Same with Nori. Obviously that Wolf's doing his medical today. So yeah, just replace them, and you're laughing really. But the one thing that's kind of angered the fan base is the midfield depth. I think we've loaned Doyle out and we've loaned Boubacar out. So when we played Lons the other day, obviously Joe and Andre, they had some good minutes under the belt. I think they played like 60 to 70 minutes. And then the options we had off the bench were Tawanda Chirewa and Manesi. It's just, if you're going into a season like that, Man City will dismantle you. Genuinely, they'll batter you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, really. I think that's, like I've been saying quite sort of recently as well, it's the midfield is concerning. And also, I was surprised initially at the start of the window when there was then links to like Richard Rios, for example. I know he's unbelievable, and I never thought that deal would go through even in the slightest, because obviously Benfica were interested and stuff like that. But equally, again, even that deal felt a bit silly, because a player of that quality is not going to want to come in and be backup. And there's also finding that line between a player that wants to be a backup and a player that just doesn't. And there's not really many players in that category, I wouldn't have thought. And that's why I think the Josh Brownhill links recently and sort of me speaking about him as a target do make sense, because again, he's 29, he'll get a payday in the Premier League, whether he likes it or not, whether he doesn't want to play, he wants to play. And ultimately, we're playing for a side that, to be fair, are still going to be better than the team that he would have been if he'd have stayed at Burnley. So it's one of them, really. In terms of going into the, obviously, like we've briefly spoke about Wolfer coming in, and there's a few more links popping around. Is there any sort of players in particular that you'd like to see, really?
It's just the ones we spoke about, really. Obviously, Wolf is doing his medical today, and then that Sanchez that we spoke about briefly as well. I think you need to replace the flanks of both Semedo and Nori, because it's the spine of your team. Your captain's gone. You need to replace someone with that experience as well. And I think it was you that mentioned it actually. Wolfer, 190 senior appearances. Yeah. You need someone like that to come in. You can't replace him with a kid. So like when Raul got injured and like you bring in like Fabio Silva, it's a completely different situation. You can't do that again, because if you do that, we won't push up the table at all, and we'll be at the lower ends. But you just need the experience to fill the gaps of Semedo and Nori, really, mate. And I'd be happy with a right back, midfielder, left back, and then an attacker, really. So 4 as a minimum. Do I think we'll get 4? Probably not. I think 2 or 3 potentially, but yeah, fingers crossed we can get 4 or 5 over the line, because I do think we need it. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It feels very draining in terms of speaking about transfers all the time. At the minute with Wolves, like it's the one thing that ultimately, though, it's a frustration amongst everyone. And obviously, when you look at there's 4 or 5 players are needed, definitely. Obviously, there are also some outgoings to happen as well. Obviously, Guedes looks like he might be on the way. Sasa Klajic has probably be on a loan if he is going to go. Hwang is not certain to stay at the club. Fabio Silva is definitely, in my opinion, going to go. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty about that. But I've just received, I think we've got some somewhat breaking news, a bit of a breaking news in terms of Juan Luis Sanchez's representatives have reportedly confirmed an agreement has been reached between Sevilla and Wolves for him, which, in terms of as a player, that's one that, again, I don't know how much to put into that thing there, but in terms of as a player, that would be an unbelievable signing. Especially, there'll be a video about him, but as a profile, that would be a perfect replacement for Semedo, in my opinion.
That shocks me. You've said that. I'm baffled. He's not going to Napoli. To be fair, mate, everything around Wolves at the minute is negative. So if we can get over the line, it's just absolute carnage, and it's brilliant. But yeah, if that gets over the line, mate, I'll be ecstatic. Buzzing.
Now, sort of moving away from the window a little bit, in terms of incomings, anyway. Now, the outgoings, I think, something that's very interesting. Now, in terms of for you as a fan, I know there's a lot of players amongst the Wolves fan base, and why I think it's such a hard thing to talk about is the fact that there is so many players in that sort of clutch that do divide opinion. You've got the likes of Fabio Silva, who completely divides opinion. You've got, players like Rodrigo Gomez. Well, I don't think he will leave, but obviously he's been touted away as well. Even in terms of staying at the club, divides opinion. You've got, Hwang massively divides opinion. Sasa divides opinion. I mean, it just feels like Guedes massively as well. There's so many players, especially in that forward line, really more than anywhere.
Yeah.
On the pitch. There's so many players that do divide opinion. So, are there any players that you think actively you're pretty set on you'd like to see sort of leave this summer? Really?
I don't know, really. I think I could probably talk more about the players I want to stay. I think there's a lot more I want to stay. I think you can get some good minutes out of Sasha. Obviously, God forbid, there's no injuries involved. I think Sasha, I do rate him, and that goal he scored in pre-season, that can sell a whole fan base. You turn around and you're like, wow, what a player. I do rate Sasha. And then, obviously, like you said, there's a lot of divide between Wolves and Fabio Silva. I think that's a big one. There's a lot of Wolves fans think we won't get much money for him. I think I'd be very surprised if we don't get around 15 to 20. I think that's the mark you'll get for Fabio Silva. But at the end of the day, I do rate him. I've always been a big Fabio fanboy since he come in, and I've really rated him. So I'd love to see him get a chance. Do I think he will? No. I think this summer's set on, like he's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fabio's my main one that I'd like to see stay. Obviously, we touched on Rodrigo Gomez. I think there was Porto links the other day.
Yeah.
I think he'll stay. It's depth yet again down the right. He's quite a versatile player. He can play on the right, on the left. I do rate Rodrigo as well. So there's a lot of players that are kind of linked to be leaving at the minute that I'd much rather see stay. Especially there's one that I really like, Forbes as well. He's recently joined Club Brugge. Under Gary O'Neill, he got, I think, one appearance against Brentford. He come off the bench against City or something. I don't think he really set the world alight, but for, I think it was only 5 to 10 million it would have been signing him for. I would have really liked to have seen Forbes stay. And I think he will definitely smash it out in Belgium. Obviously, it's not the most competitive league in the world. I think it'll be well suited to him. So there's a lot of players that have gone that I'd like to see stay, and then a lot currently at the club that I'd love to see stay as well. But that's about it, really.
Yeah, I think the Fabio Silva stuff is interesting as well. Like for me, on that sort of stance, it's like ultimately every loan you've had, there's been a loan fee involved, relatively reasonable, some of them as well. And in terms of his stock is not going to be higher at Wolves than it is this summer. In terms of obviously next season, I think he's got 1 year left in his deal after next, or it might even be 1 year now. So again, his contract issue will massively affect his valuation. The fact that he's come off the back of a good season for Las Palmas in La Liga, there's a lot of clubs sniffing around him as well. I think in terms of stock, he's definitely at his highest. And so, like you say, I think 15 to 20 million is around the market you'll get. I mean, I've seen players score the same amount of goals as him going for 30, 35, but Wolves just never seem to do that. The sales have been so poor, really. And the way that players have been managed as well. I mean, even youth players like Fabio Silva is one of them that, as much as he hasn't set the world like when he has played, equally, Wolves have always been a club, especially in recent years, that have mismanaged those younger players. They just haven't really, it feels like, managed them in the right ways, in my opinion. And like I say, I think with Fabio Silva, if you can get the loan fees back for, obviously the loan fees in for him, you've got, and also 15 to 20 mil, you'll probably break even or maybe even be slightly in profit on him. So ultimately, it's not the worst deal in the world. Now, one of the things I did want to ask you is a position we haven't seen addressed yet. As I said about, we spoke about Juan Luis Sanchez and stuff, but in terms of a position that hasn't been addressed, is that right fullback option. If Juan Luis Sanchez doesn't come in, which it's still very likely given the fact that Napoli are still, I wouldn't imagine going to give up on him as a player. It's, they've been chasing him for around 12 to 18 months now, so he's definitely wanted by the club. For you, as the current fullback options at the club, how do you feel about Herver and Lima? Because I know Lima's one again that a lot of people rate highly, but ultimately, for me personally, as highly as I like and highly as I rate him and think as good as he can be, ultimately, I think he needs a loan. So where do you stand on those two, really?
I definitely agree with Lima needing a loan. I feel like he's not quite first team ready, but on the contrary, I think Hoover might be.
Yeah.
Obviously, I took the lovely scenic trip down to Warsaw the other day to go and watch Wolves versus Lons. Absolutely brilliant. That was absolutely awful. But I do think Hoover played quite well. I think a few Wolves fans were like, I'm not completely sold on him, which is fair enough. He's had a few good loan moves. He's been to Stoke. He's been to Auxerre, whatever it was in French. I think he'd be ready, but there definitely needs to be competition there. If you're going into a Premier League season with your starting right back as Hoover, then it's not looking good. But I think depth wise, he's definitely a good option, and I think what I've seen from him so far, I think he's quite bright.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like Herber for me, I've been quite vocal about him as well. Obviously, as someone who watched a hell of a lot of him coming through at Liverpool as well, very start of his career, massively rated him. I actually thought it was going to be a really good deal for Wolves. Ultimately, it hasn't turned out to be that. Obviously, like you say, been on loan at Auxerre last season, impressed really well at Stoke, and then obviously did relatively okay at PSV as well. Not unbelievable, but not terrible. And generally, 91 games on loan now since 2022. So he's got his caps under his belt. And I think his interview after Stoke was interesting as well. He spoke very clearly about sort of maturing as a man, as a player, as well as a person. So I think that was another thing that was interesting. And I think it was also key in that interview. He did obviously say as well that he's finally been given a chance by the manager, which was quite telling, I think. And I think we've all known that he's never really been given a chance. And that's not necessarily saying that he deserved to have one, but equally, I think as a player that young, I think you've got to expect, ultimately he was used as a bargaining tool for Liverpool to get Jota. So you're not necessarily going to feel wanted. And also probably didn't want to go towards at that time. He probably wanted to stay at Liverpool, fight for the spot with Alexander-Arnold, because that was very much a possibility around that time. So, for him, it's been a bit of a difficult one now. If we just move forward briefly to the Premier League season that's upcoming, obviously, like we briefly touched on, we don't think the squad's anywhere near that yet, and there are additions needed to be added. But in terms of for you next season, what do you hope to see? Because I've asked every fan this, and there's been different opinions. So for Villa, for example, it was consistency away from home. For Bournemouth, it was trying to beat the teams that are lower in the league. Bournemouth always to upset the apple cart by beating the big sides, but ultimately against the lower side they'll struggle. So for you, what's something that you want to see from Wolves next season?
Defending set piece as well is a huge one. I think we got a lot better under Vitor, but under Gary O'Neill, the set pieces were tragic. And especially like talking last season, especially like Gary O'Neill period, the problem was never scoring goals.
Yeah,
I think we can score plenty of goals. Obviously, we don't have the likes of Cunha anymore. But Cunha and Strand Larsen, when they linked up, their combined goal contributions was up the top in the Prem. It was up there with the big six teams. Mm-hmm. So I don't, yet again this season, with the likes of Arias coming in, I don't think scoring goals will be an issue.
I agree.
I think it's more the back line. I rate Totti, I rate Mosquera. I think Robert Renan, we've been linked with, bringing in a player like that just to kind of strengthen the back line, I think is definitely needed for me. Just set pieces and just the two signings, right and left, Semedo, Nate Nori replacements is just all I want to see at the minute, really.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think, like you said, the set piece defending's been woeful. And ultimately, to be fair, set piece attacking hasn't been great either. I mean, that's another thing for me that I think would probably be one of my things for Wolves to look at next season. I mean, the set piece goals, lack of set piece goals. And you look at the sort of options in there. Obviously, last season, centre halves, obviously Doherty was in there for a majority of the time. He's not a massive fella, but he chips in with the odd goal, not really set piece goals, but chips in with the odd goal. And then obviously Agbadou's absolutely massive. Didn't really see him as a threat from set pieces last season when he came in either. So I think that's something that Wolves should definitely look at, both defending and offensively next season, really. Now, in terms of sort of the season as a whole, I know it's very negative at the minute, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong for people. Everyone, I'm not here to tell people how to feel. Ultimately, transfer window, as we said, not good enough. Don't want to sort of speak on that too much. Current squad, arguably not good enough as well, really. Definitely not good enough, really, to be honest, in terms of depth. But in terms of going into the season, if the season was to start and you did, say Wolves, in a world where everything's rosy, Wolves getting the players that they want and the players that they need, where do you think you'll finish next season?
If we do get all the players we're linked with and the players that especially Vitor wants, I think we can push up the table and do well. I think Vitor's a very good manager, and I think with the tools at hand and with the players that he wants, I can see us finishing top 10. It's ambitious, but if you give the manager what he wants, if you give him that money to spend, obviously that Tetty coming in as well, if you give them to a budget, who knows what can happen. I think at the minute, if we go into the season, let's say tomorrow, with the squad we've got, I would be very happy to finish 16th, 17th, 15th, kind of just surviving relegation. But if in an ideal world we get the transfers we want and we invest well, there's no reason why we can't push on and up the table to around 10th.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been sort of similar on that stance as well, I think. And generally, when you look at the squad, like I say, it is only a few areas. Obviously, there are a lot of key areas, which is the issue. But it's the fact that realistically, if Wolves can get the players in, then it's definitely it can probably go from one end of the spectrum to the other completely, really. Yeah. So in terms of sort of the season ahead, I like to ask every fan base this. Usually, some of them are quite predictable. Some of them go for a rogue shout. Generally, I just want to know your honest opinion on it. I want to know who you think for Wolves next season will be the top scorer, top assister, and player of the season.
Oh, right. Strand Larson, top scorer. I feel like if you go with anyone else, you're an idiot. Assists. See, the one to go with would probably be Arias. With how creative he is and how dynamic he would be in that 10 role where Cunha is. Yeah, I'd probably say Arias. I don't want to go like a rogue shout or anything. Just simple. John Arias. Player of the season. Wow. João Gomez. Again. I think that man is mustard. Genuinely, if we got rid of João Gomez, I'd be devastated.
Yeah.
Him and Andre are so key to our team. I don't think some fans realise. I've seen a lot of people say either one of them's overrated. I think both of them, the way they work together, it is the spine of your team. It is key to have those players, especially that the quality of those two is key for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I've interacted on numerous posts, even this week, to be fair, on Twitter and stuff like that, and saying that, for example, Sunderland, for example, I've seen a lot of Sunderland fans saying, we've got one of the top 4 or 5 midfielders in the league. That's not me saying that they haven't got an unbelievable midfield, but equally, like, they're putting Wolves really low down the table. And I'm like, ultimately, if you look at that, it's Brazil's starting midfield. In my opinion, it's one of the best duos in the Premier League, not just midfield duos, but just in general, duos in general are really, really great. And I think it's really important that people from the outside look at it, and people who watch us who aren't Wolves fans absolutely have to appreciate them, because they are absolutely ridiculous, both of them. And the fact that they're both playing for Wolves, and the fact that ultimately they cost as much as they did combined is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, as well, people forget, as much of criticism as sort of the transfers have got over the last few years, Liverpool were in for Andre 12 months before Wolves signed him. Fulham were in for Andre at the exact same time, and they managed to land him, which is an absolutely ludicrous, deal in itself, really. And that's something that I think goes under the radar. And obviously, there is a lot of negativity, as we've said, but that's just what it is. Now, one of the things that I want to speak to you about, sort of more importantly, as well, aside from football, as important as it is in general life, really, is the upcoming Content Creators Cup. And I want to speak to you about that, really, because obviously it's an important event, massively important. I was just wondering if you could tell people who perhaps aren't Wolves fans, or people who are Wolves fans who haven't realised what's going on, what the Content Creator Cup is about, and sort of why it came about, really.
Yeah, definitely. So both me and Connor, I think it's the 6th of September, around then, we'll both be taking part in the Content Creators Cup, and that is taking place at the Wolves training ground. So there is tickets on the day, so if you do want to come down and watch us ball out, which is the main thing, then yeah, definitely come on down. It'll be a very good day. on the Content Creators Cup website, which you can find on Twitter as well. Yeah, they're currently aiming for to raise around £8,000. Anything above that would just be incredible. And all the money goes towards Wolves Foundation, etc. So hopefully a lot of you can come on the day and we can raise a lot of money for it, because it's bigger than football. Obviously, as much as you want to win cheeky little silverware, it's a lot bigger than that. I spoke to Dazzling Dave about it, and I had like a little interview in the media suite in Molyneux, and we did speak about it being a lot bigger than football, and hopefully we can bring the trophy home for Robbie Meakin, especially. That's what we want to do. See, we want to raise money and we want to bring it home for Robbie. So if we can see as many of you as possible on the day, then we'd definitely appreciate it. I think last year they had around 300 people, and it was Dave as a Party's Talking Wolves that won it. Not this year, mate. If you're watching, not this year. But yeah, want to raise as much money as possible, of course.
Yeah, I think it's all in. The thing that is great about it as well this year, obviously, it's bigger in terms of there's 2 more teams now that the Spurs lads and Walsall lads are obviously in it.
Walsall lads, yeah.
So it's going to be a great event, and like I say, I'll put all the links in the description as well. Put the links to the social media, the website as well. I'll also put Tyler's links in the description if you want to check it out as well. I'm sure most of you all will know who he is anyway. But generally, I think in terms of as an event, I think it's massive, and like I say, it's £3 entry, I believe, so it's not going to break the bank for anyone, and also whilst also going to a great cause, of course. And I think in terms of raising money, for charity, there's not many better events that I've seen a lot of fan bases really put on, and last year was brilliant and a testament to everyone involved. Really, it was absolutely incredible, and it's been run really well, in general, really. And I think that's something the Wolves Foundation have done well, is in terms of raising money. All the events that they put on for the foundation have absolutely flown and been a real success. So I think it's going to be really good. Now, one last bit of unexpected news again, as we sort of get into the end of the podcast and the interview, really. Wolves have valued Jorgen Strand-Larsen at more than 65 million amid interest from Newcastle United, as reported by Jan Arge Fjortoft, who obviously used to play football himself. So I don't know how reliable that is. Obviously, he's a journalist now in Norway, but generally, 65 million seems, to me anyway, not unfair, but still, I still think Newcastle will be willing to pay that, or clubs will be willing to pay that. So I just wanted to know your opinion on it, really.
Yeah, a player of his quality, you'd be spending 75 to 80, I'd say. It's like it's similar with the Cunha situation. Like, we put his release clause at like 62.5. Matheus Cunha is not worth that. Matheus Cunha is above 80 to 90 million. I think United had a very good deal in that, especially paying in instalments. So as long as if the Strand-Larsen deal ever happens, hopefully it's straight up money, because if it's across instalments, the money still goes into the bank, but you just don't want it in instalments, really. But 80 plus million for a player of his quality, I think, is fair, especially when I think Isak's going for about 120.
Yeah.
80 for me personally, but I think if Fosun were to sell him and Wolves were to sell him, it would be around 65 million, because it's just what Wolves do in it. That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. And to be fair, it's been really nice to chat to you today, mate, because obviously I know you as well. And it's also nice to pick your brains, because like I say, the interesting thing about Wolves is that you can speak to 10 fans and all 10 of them could have a different opinion. So it's nice to hear different opinions from you. I spoke to Dave as well. I'm sure I'll speak to like Harry and Dan from the Wolfpack and stuff like that in the future as well. So I'm sure it's going to be really interesting. The season, hopefully, won't be that interesting. Hopefully, it'll be quite plain sailing. Get to December, be mid-table. It'll all be cushy, but hopefully that's how it goes. But I really appreciate you speaking to me today.
Thank you for having me on, mate.